Great. Well, why don't we go ahead and get things started with week 2 and talk about everything that we sent you and answer any questions you might have about things. I personally was really excited about this week because, as we kick things off and we just talk about kind of getting into the mindset of meal planning, this to me is like the bread and butter of the program, pun intended. In terms of really taking the recipe ideas and making a meal plan for yourself and then making that shopping list to budget like I did and going and executing it. And then the thing I was the most excited about was this pricing sheet to give you all an idea of how much you're going to spend when you're at the store. So I love this week. I love the recipes we decided to share, and we can talk more about kind of how they run together or things. We can talk more about the method of when I cook what so that I can enjoy them later throughout the week. Or, for example, with the roast chicken, how I take the leftover chicken from that and I use it to make my chicken salad, and finding ways to transition things throughout the week so that you can really enjoy all of the ingredients you buy and you're not left with any waste at the end. So does anybody want to start off with questions, or you all, it'd be really fun to hear what parts of this you've done so far. I think the thing that's tricky is that obviously we were releasing this a week at a time to give you some time to digest it. But if you were to go shopping right now and then wait to see in week 3, which will release on a week from, or this coming Tuesday, I'm going to show you all of the things I do right when I get home from the grocery store to prep the ingredients, right? So you might want to wait and shop closer to next Monday or Tuesday. Wow, it'd be great if I could get that out a little early for you, actually. So you can see the things I do before I ever put anything into the refrigerator, how I organize my ingredients and prep some of them and cook them right away so that it's done, right? The other thing, of course, we can talk about, which I talked about a lot in the module this week, is prepping your fridge and your pantry to get ready to bring things in, because there's nothing worse than going to the grocery and coming in and realizing you've got all kinds of things in your refrigerator that need to be cleaned out first. And what happens when you put clean new food on old food, it tends to all go to waste and things get lost. And even if it was fresh and able to be used, you end up not finding it, or you go to use something and forget about something. And that's how we get into a habit of wasting money at the store, right? So does anybody want to start with questions, first of all? If you started your menu plan, or you want to show us what you did, and I can call you in here, and you can show people yourselves? Or are we shy? Okay, do you use a specific system to keep stock of what you have, or do you check visually each week? That is such a good question. First of all, that list of the go-to ingredients, I pretty much kind of do it in my head, but when I really want to be sure of things, I go to my go-to list, right? And these are things that I tend to have stocked in my house anyhow. But I go through once I've made my shopping list, and then I kind of check everything visually. So making a shopping list helps me for a couple of reasons, Talia. I can, first of all, project how much I'm going to spend, right? And then I can take this list, and some things I automatically know. Oh, I've got olive oil. Oh, I've got eggs. I know this. But then I can this is about a 5-minute situation to go and look for these things in the fridge and the pantry before I go to the store. So I'm all about putting eyes on things. I think it's how I learn. I'm a really visual learner. And so I love having this list that I can go and check against. But then I also, if I had all the time in the world, or if I had a situation where someone was helping me in the kitchen, I would probably, I can still do this actually, keep this posted on a wall somewhere in my kitchen. So if people are on their way to the store and it's not you, you can always change this list yourself, but you can say, oh gosh, check for these things, or I know I need A, B, and C, right? And they can keep your pantry and your perishables full for you. So that's one thing that can be really helpful. but I tend to just use my list to compare every week to make sure I'm not buying double of something. Things I tend to buy a lot of if I don't check: carrots, green onions. I'm much better about, like animal proteins. I usually know. Eggs, sometimes I forget. And like the other day I came in, I had 36 eggs. It was like, what part of this didn't I remember? So I always like to go and compare things here. The other thing I like about this, and the other reason I like to clean out anything before I go to the store, is that when I go through my pantry to clean out things before I go shopping, the things I find are like bags of chips that were, half eaten, or they're open and they've gone stale, or, a little thing of almonds left, those kinds of things. It helps me also understand what I've got back there. And when I clean it out first, then it allows me to see what else I have on hand and see what's missing. If I just keep throwing things in there, you can imagine, you never know what you have on hand. Any other questions? This is your time to truly ask anything you'd like about the plan this week. Have all of you seen what we've given you, and we'll talk about the recipes too. But I just love this pricing list. And this is something Caitlin, my culinary assistant, did based on prices at Whole Foods. And we did that intentionally so you could see kind of, a lot of people think Whole Foods is like the most expensive place to buy things. I think when you're buying individual ingredients, it's not the most expensive place to buy things, especially produce and organic produce. But I like these prices so that if you're shopping anywhere else that tends to come in less expensive, you'll know it if you plan off of this sheet, right? Or if you shop at a place where prices are really different, you can fill in your prices so you know what they cost, and you can just get used to filling yours in yourself. Any questions? Let's see. We've got 8 people here. 22 were registered for this. I totally get it's hard to get places. And we're just going to send out the playback of this class along with the one from last week as well, since we're just getting warmed up, because I feel like we've sent you so many emails. And if you're in House of Haas as well, it's been a busy couple of weeks for classes since we had one last week and we have one this Saturday in a couple of days. So I'm trying to keep the emails to a minimum. Oh, and then we just finished writing up our class that's going to be our first guest chef. And we're going to launch that information next Tuesday, I think. The Asian-inspired chicken salad sounds wonderful, and I love Asian food, but I do not love soy-based dressings. Any other thoughts for dressing? Ruth, I'm so glad you asked that. I can't have regular soy sauce because of my gluten intolerance. And so I use tamari. If it's just the taste you don't like, I'm going to pull up the recipe, sorry, so I can give you some better suggestions for a dressing. There are a lot of things you could do. You could do one have you ever had anything with fish sauce in it? Fish sauce, lime juice, brown sugar is a really popular combination. Not in your flavor palette. Okay, I'm so glad to know that. I'm going to tell you what I made this weekend then that you might like instead. Fish sauce, yes, hooray. Okay, so there are a million things you can do with the fish sauce and the lime juice to make a vinaigrette instead. But you know what I did? I'm going to share this recipe with you all when I go to do the cooking and show you how I cook all of these things throughout the week. How did I do this? I took curry powder, because I put curry powder, I made my curry spice nut mix, okay? So I had the curry spice nut mix that was on the meal plan. I ate all of the pumpkin seeds out of it. And I was making dinner and I had a bunch of leftover ingredients. This is actually a great example of how to use things. I had extra cabbage from testing this chicken salad. I had extra chicken. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to cook the chicken breast in a pan with some really light seasoning on it. But then I shredded that. And to make the vinaigrette for the salad, where it had cabbage, carrots, green onion, a little bit of mint, and chicken. Oh, and then I sprinkled in some of this curry spice nut mix with the pumpkin seeds and cashews. So what I did for the vinaigrette is I took about 2 teaspoons of curry powder, and I added some black pepper to it and a sprinkling of kosher salt. And then I squeezed the juice of 1 lime into it. I added like a teaspoon of maple syrup. You could use honey though. And then you can drizzle in either avocado oil or like a really mild olive oil. Whisk that together, like 2 parts oil to 1 part of the lime juice. And I just drizzled that over the salad. Mimi, it was delicious. So I met Ruth. So now I'm laughing because of maybe what you said about picking up the chicken. That's hilarious. My kids would have liked that version better. So if that helps for dressing, that would be a really fun one, Ruth. But the other thing you can do is substitute a lot of dressings. I think nak cham, where it's fish sauce and lime juice and a little bit of palm sugar typically, or brown sugar, is delicious. And you can thin that out with some oil. If you don't like sesame oil, don't do that. But again, olive or avocado. And you could even use, I'm just trying to think of anything if you want to thicken it or to bind it. You could probably use Dijon mustard there and it'd be delicious. It'd be really yummy. So those are some thoughts for you there. Oh yeah, hoisin could be a little thick. You know what? Add some water with the hoisin and you'd be absolutely okay. Coconut aminos I use all the time, KQ, in place of soy sauce or tamari. As you probably know, if you're asking, it's a little sweeter, and but it's a great ingredient for our health. And I use them just like I would use soy. I just pull back a little bit. Like if something calls for any sweetener like maple syrup or honey, and I'm using coconut aminos, I just wait until I taste at the end before adding the sweetener to see if I want it or not. Talia, I'm going back to your question about kosher salt, and Mimi, that's just so hilarious. Kosher salt is my preferred salt for a few reasons, especially because most cooks and most cookbooks are written using diamond kosher salt. So what we know as, I'm just trying to find my salt for you. What we know as, oh, here it is. When we talk about salt and we talk about Morton iodized salt, it's kind of crazy. In other countries, that is not something that they would use in cooking by any means. The salinity is really high, meaning it's got so much sodium that it's already harder to digest for your health, or metabolize, I should say. We should look up why people started putting iodine in that salt and why Morton's started selling it. Honestly, I don't know if it was to be an anti-caking thing, but it's so dang salty. And it's almost like, I don't want to say it burns your tongue, but it doesn't bring out the flavors in the same way that a kosher salt or a flake salt, Himalayan salt, sea salt would do. Now, kosher is used in most recipes, especially the brand Diamond, because you want it to weigh the same amount per recipe. So if you're calling for different kinds of salts and you say 1/4 of a teaspoon, depending on like how big the salt crystals are, it can change the density and the weight of it. So when you're trying to write a recipe and you want things to be consistent, you have to have a consistent thing to measure, right? Kosher salt happens to melt really well, dissolve well with liquids. It also just dissolves easily when you're making all kinds of foods. It's not too salty. It doesn't have a lot of stuff added to it. And Diamond Kosher seems to be the one people settled on in terms of the size of the salt crystals, the shape and size. And so it's uniform, right? I have my friend Ben Jacobson started Jacobson Salt Company in Oregon, and I love his salt, but his kosher salt flakes are like at least twice as big as these flakes. And so if I go to cook with it, it's different and it's saltier, truly. So I'm really aware of when I'm using salt and how. So you'll see all of my recipes when I call for salt. I say at the front of my book or in the things I call for kosher salt. Some people go as far as saying every single recipe, if they call for kosher salt, then they'll say Diamond, or they'll name the brand because that's how different they can be. We can talk more about salts later in terms of like finishing salts, where they're those really beautiful big flakes that you can add something if you want salt to be like one of the biggest ingredients you get, and you want that crunch and that additional flavor. So like on a rare steak, it's really popular to lightly season the whole steak, but then to put those big chunky salt flakes on top. So when you add it with some other ingredients, it's like that burst in your mouth and it brings out all the flavors in the food. Malden sea salt, I've got that up here somewhere too. These flakes are beautiful. They dissolve easily, and they're just like a flavor to be appreciated on their own. But these flakes are huge. I want to show you. Can you see how some of these flakes, like that flake is humongous, right? So that's why we get really specific when calling for types of salt. If you were going to make sea salt caramel cookies, they'll call for sea salt, and most things would be really specific. See how big that is? It's crazy, right? So they're very different. Is better for blood pressure levels too. I don't want to speak as a dietitian or a nutritionist, but I'm pretty sure yes. I will do some more research on why I don't recommend iodized salt and why cooks don't recommend it. I've never heard a chef be like, this is when you want to use iodized salt. It is just not a good for us product, right? So nothing against Morton's. Morton's makes a kosher salt as well. It's just, I'm dying to know why that salt became so popular and caught on as like the salt we're always supposed to use. It's like the least desirable one we can use. KQ, you're right, sweeter for the coconut aminos, but less salty. So that's exactly right. You might have to adjust the salt. From eating the sea and soil, we became deficient in iodine, which is, you're absolutely right about that, Mimi. And now I've heard too, it is not a source of iodine. It's not where we want to get iodine either. Isn't that interesting? It sounded like a good idea at the time, right? We start messing with Mother Nature though, and things don't go so well. I always say to people too, when they're like, how do you know if you're using too much salt at home? And if you're not using iodized salt, it's really hard to oversalt your food in comparison to what you're getting in fast food and in restaurants. So when you're cooking real food for yourself and you're seasoning things yourself, the chances of it being having more sodium in it are incredibly rare. So that's the good news. When you cook at home, you're also doing something for your sodium levels, and usually sugar as well, because unless you're cooking with all packaged products, you're not putting sugar in your recipes. It's just like a filler ingredient, Sugar, salt, and fat are ways people add flavor. They're lazy ways to add flavor, is what I say. What other questions? I love all these questions. Any others before I talk about the recipes a little bit? I just thought I'd share my 2 cents. How do you recommend storing mint and parsley to make it last longer? Oh, I love these questions. Talia, mint is the least forgiving herb. Parsley is one of the most. And so flat leaf parsley, I'm just thinking how to differentiate between them. Basil can be very sensitive as well. But if you buy basil in the plastic storage containers that are like, they clip shut, it stays really nice in those containers. If you're just buying it at the market, like a farmer's market, the best thing to do for basil is to put it in a glass with a little bit of water. Trim the bottoms of the stems, put it in a glass with just a little bit of water, and then take a plastic bag. In particular, if you have the green kind that are good for the environment, they're thinner, and just cover those basil leaves loosely. What it does is it creates like a little steamy dome, a cloche, and it allows the basil to stay fresh and hydrated, for lack of a better expression. I also, this goes for mint, especially basil and mint. The other thing I can do is take some paper towel and dampen it just barely. Just get it barely damp, and then I'll show you. Say you add a little water to this, right? just like a teaspoon, and then bunch it up and open it. Then put the mint right here and you roll it up to store it like that. And then you can put it in a plastic bag and put it in your herb drawer if you want. That's the fanciest way to do it to make it last longer. Mint, I get so lazy about storing things, you guys. I usually buy it and just try to use it all really quickly. But that's how you would do it if you want to keep it on hand for a while. Parsley, same thing. Parsley is much hardier though. So if you do parsley, you probably won't have a problem with, I've done everything from keeping it in a paper bag in the fridge that it came into a plastic bag if it was in one, and just giving it a little air to breathe. And it usually seems okay. Any other questions? I love this. Does anybody have menu planning questions? I'm just going to kind of go through the recipes and talk again about, I'm going to show you this in next week's plan when I'm going to cook all of this food for you, but how these recipes kind of play off each other. So starting with the roasted chicken, I put that at the beginning of the week for my meal plan. I put it at Sunday actually, because as the day where I go to the store, I come home and give myself an hour or so to do as much cooking as I possibly can to kind of get ahead for the week. So that roast chicken recipe is so simple. You can either do it on your grill or in the oven, whichever you prefer, and then eat it for dinner that night. And then save any of the chicken pieces that you can shred off the bone and use that to go into your Asian-inspired chicken salad later in the week. So that's one of the things I'll talk about in class this week. The quinoa salad I love doing on Sundays as well, because you can cook the quinoa. It's the simplest grain to cook. You just, it's 2 parts water to 1 part quinoa. You rinse the quinoa first. I'll talk about that. Excuse me. Then you bring it up to a simmer, and then you put a lid on it, cut the heat, and let it sit. Or you can just very, very low simmer for like 13 to 15 minutes. And what's going to happen is the quinoa seed kind of like splits and it gets a little seam on the outside. And that's when you know it's done. And then you can just let it cool at room temperature and kind of fluff it with a fork. And you can refrigerate it that way, or you can add the ingredients for the salad. You can make the vinaigrette and put that in there, and it'll absorb all of that flavor from the vinaigrette. Or you can go so far as making the whole salad that night and serving it with the chicken. And then it is delicious to eat all week long. The honey mustard salmon is literally the easiest recipe in my repertoire. And every time I try to fancy it up, someone around here says, why did you do that? It is just good on its own. So that's a really fun weeknight meal to make. And I like to do that at the beginning of my week, because if you're buying your fish fresh, it's not going to last long in your fridge. So unless you plan on freezing it and taking it out later in the week, I like to make it at the beginning of the week. Then Thai or Asian-inspired chicken salad. I'm going to show you 2 versions of this salad this week. And this one has the dressing that Ruth was saying is not her favorite, where it's got sesame oil, lime juice, peanut butter, honey, kosher salt, green onions, clove of garlic, and a little bit of water to thin it out. So if you prefer to do something else for a dressing, you can do what I was telling you about with the curry powder and a sprinkling of maple syrup or a squeeze of honey, and then the juice of a lime and olive or avocado oil, a little bit of water if you need. It's absolutely delicious. But for this one, this dressing is the hardest part of the recipe. Everything else is just chopping things. So if you'd like to do that dressing ahead in the week, you can as well. I'd say, to be honest, it takes probably 15 minutes. It's 10 minutes in my world, but 15 from beginning to end to just clean it up. You can always make a double batch so you have more around. My kids love it. It does feel really indulgent, that dressing. So I'm a big fan. But also on the Asian-inspired chicken salad, you'll see it calls for a bunch of things, like roasted shredded chicken or fried chicken, Napa cabbage, red cabbage, matchstick carrots, almonds, green onions, and then it calls for mint, basil, or a combination. You guys can absolutely substitute what you like. So if you'd rather use romaine lettuce instead of all the cabbage, you can. You could put steak in this salad. You could put salmon in this salad that's been cooked, actually, instead of chicken. You could do tofu. It would be delicious with tofu if you're a tofu eater. And then the other ingredients you add are just totally to your liking as well. So I'm just always looking to something for crunch. So I usually put a nut in there if I'm not doing like something crispy in it, like fried rice paper crackers I used to do. I'm not that fun anymore. But maybe I'll make the option in my next cookbook so people can have those again. So again, this is something that like you could do the dressing a couple of days in advance. Even if you didn't want to do this right after work or whatever you're doing in the afternoon, you could do this at any time during the day. Just chop all the cabbages, the carrots, and have everything sitting in a salad bowl in the fridge. And when it's time to eat, just bring it out, dump the dressing on, and you're good to go. So it's another great one that you can work ahead with. Oh my gosh, you guys, the red Thai curry. I made this last week. Told you about it. I originally wrote this to be vegetarian, and I used tofu and green beans. But I used chicken in it last week instead of tofu, and it was phenomenal. And it was delicious the next day too. So it comes together really quickly once you gather all of your ingredients. It might look a little intimidating, but the things you're having to do in advance is cut the green beans up, slice the onion. If you want to use fresh ginger, you can grate the ginger, mince the garlic. There's a chili if you want, and you just thinly slice it. But then the rest is just measuring things out. So it's about taking the time to measure everything before you start to cook. And if you do that, this recipe comes together in no time. So read the instructions. Like I'm always saying, read the recipe before you start to make it. And put all of these ingredients together before you start to cook, and you will be amazed by how much easier it is to cook. Any other questions before I keep chatting about recipes? It's fun, just a few of us here. No, you guys are just listening along, taking notes. Okay. The red sauce is just my super basic meat sauce that I make, and I'm laughing. Oh, there it is, the ground beef. A lot of times I double this, so completely up to you. You just need a really large pot or pan if you're going to double it. But it is just so delicious and so simple. It takes about, 10 to 15 minutes to get all the ingredients together and saute it in the pan. But you can let it cook longer and slower to kind of like bring out the flavors, right? But it is super simple to make. You can freeze this one. You can make a double batch, freeze half. You can use it as a base for lasagna if you want. I'm going to get to your ginger question or comment too. So I love this recipe. And then the curry spice nut mix, I literally made this on the grill the other night. If you follow me on Instagram, I just put the sheet pan on the grill. It's just, you take nuts, pumpkin seeds if you like them, any other seeds if you like, and then you combine it with a little bit of coconut oil, maple syrup, curry powder, salt, pepper. That's it. You toss it in that, throw it on a baking sheet, and let it brown. This recipe calls it 300 for 30 to 35 minutes, tops. And I just put it on the grill at 350 while I was cooking chicken, and it was absolutely delicious. And then we used it for a snack, and you can also, like I said, I put some of the nuts in my salad, and it was like mind-blowing. So fun. I'm going to look for a piece of ginger, and I'm going to show you my favorite trick right now. So hold on, friends. Let me see if I have any. Ginger. So, hold on. I have a piece I can rescue. I'll be right back. Okay, I have some. Are you ready for me to blow your mind? Okay. We are going to do 3 ways to do this. Hi, Con. I'm going to get my knife. I'm going to get a spoon. Just 1 second. We had a little visitor, Connor, right over here.
Oh, can I throw it away for $10?
What? No, my son is hilarious. Okay, I'm going to show you 3 ways to do this without a ginger grater. So ginger graters come, they're like I have one of those. Actually, this is more for like the second step in the process, right? Where you run peeled ginger over it and it'll grate it. Sometimes if I'm being lazy, I'll just keep the skin on and it kind of separates it a little bit. But the peeler, a paring knife, not the safest, a spoon. Somebody taught me this with the spoon, and I'm going to get really close to show you this trick. Okay, so you just take this part of the spoon and you pull down on it. You see, I'm literally like coming up. It's working. I'm going to get juice on my keyboard. Can you see how it's scraping off? You just hold it right like this, and you pull towards yourself. Look at that. Ta-da! Pretty cool, right? Oh, I love fresh ginger, the smell of it. The other option, I love my OXO peeler, and you just want to kind of stabilize it in your hand, and I peel towards myself. See how it peels that strip off? So really easy, but it's getting in these little crevices that's hard. So people, and by people I mean serious chefs, could use a paring knife, and it has to be really sharp, because if not, you got to be careful. This is the least safe way to do it. But if you're really good with a small paring knife, you can pull. So in conclusion, I like the spoon trick the best. It'll get the big areas for you at least. The most surface area. See, like just, ta-da. Isn't that cool? Now I'm going to have to juice this. Yeah, you just hold it, stabilize it in one hand, and pull with the top of the spoon in the other, okay? I'm so excited. We just got to learn that. Cool? Yeah, the spoon, I think, is the best way to go, okay? You guys, just for tuning in live, you get extra little tricks. And also, because you tuned in live, you get an extra entry into our giveaway, which I didn't even tell you guys what our giveaway is. It's a piece of Heston cookware, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we'll announce it probably in our email this week when we send out the third week on Tuesday. And we'll go from there. Okay, so other questions. Woo! I'm glad you like it, Mimi. Isn't that fun? Can you use chicken breast for the salmon with the honey mustard? Absolutely. So the one thing I would say about honey mustard, well, I do this actually with the salmon too. I don't put it on at the very beginning because the honey will burn. Anytime you're using that much natural sugar in something or unnatural sugar, you have to worry about it burning. So I would actually cook the chicken breast for about, like 25 minutes, depending on how long you're going to cook it in its entirety. Let's say you're cooking it for 30 minutes. At about 25 minutes, I would brush the honey mustard on the chicken and let it bake in. Okay. Is there a trick to getting good tofu, Mimi? We should have a talk about tofu. For me, it's not, yes, there is good tofu and bad tofu, and there's really good tofu, like Hodo Soy, Hodo. They are based here in Oakland, and I've been to their factory where they make it. It is phenomenal. It blew me away. The process is beautiful. But it depends on what you're looking for. So there are different textures of tofu, and that affects what I use them for. So silky or silken tofu is really, it's almost like yogurt. It breaks apart really easily. So if I'm looking to use tofu as an ingredient in a sauce or a vinaigrette, or even a dessert, I'll use that. But then when I'm looking to cook it, I usually get the firm tofu. And I still press the moisture out of that once I open it up. So, it's packed in liquid, and which is great. It'll keep it in good shape. But then when you take it out to cook it, I usually cut it into thinner pieces, and I press on it with paper towels or a clean cloth and really get that moisture out. Otherwise, it's really hard to crisp it. So I like to get my tofu crispy. Like I have a recipe on my website for crispy tofu. It's like a breakfast scramble, which it's so crazy delicious. My son Charlie made it up when he was really young. He was contributing to one of my first cookbooks and said, I want to try something. And it was so delicious. We've made it ever since. So you want to look, the crisping. So you really, I normally take it out of its container or package I'll put it on, I'll drain the water first, and then I'll pat it dry a little bit, and then I'll cut it. If it's a thick block, I'll cut it into halves or thirds, and then I press paper towels on it to really help absorb that liquid. And I even flip it over and do the same thing, and I'll change the paper towel sometimes. So that's the trick. If you want to get it really crispy after you do that, you can always dredge it in a little bit of flour, gluten-free flour or rice flour. Hi, Mary Beth. And that will work as well, okay? But yeah, that's what I do. I get it really dry, and then I use a nonstick pan, and I'll put the oil in, and I let the oil get really hot before I add the tofu. Plenty of salt with tofu you need to, because it can be really bland without it. And then I let it crisp. What else? What other questions? Oh, and Mimi, I'm thinking about it for the red Thai curry. Hold on a second. What do I call for in that one? Extra firm. Yeah. Yeah. And since it's going into liquid, you don't have to worry about pressing the liquid out of it so much. I still do it a little bit because I kind of like the texture that way. Sound good? What else, friends? Anything else? Have you guys done your menus? Have you got your plan? Next Tuesday morning is when I'm going to launch the class that shows you. I'm not going to cook every recipe through to the end, but what I'm going to do is be like, okay, I just got back from the store. You're right about that, KQ. I just got back from the store. Here's what I do right away. I'm going to cook my chicken. I'm going to make my dressing. I'm going to cook the quinoa. I'll show you some other things I like to do for storing my veggies and kind of prepping some things in advance too, so that as you move throughout your week, things feel a lot less difficult. So like chopping your cabbage and doing things like that just make the rest of the week so much easier. Yes, that peanut butter dressing is good on anything, but I actually love that quinoa. I was gonna say, if you have leftover chicken from the roast chicken and you don't end up doing the salad, you could just mix that in with the quinoa for a great lunch. You can make a green salad and add the chicken and some of the quinoa to the green salad, and it kind of stretches it and gives you more protein. Let me make sure I answered everybody's questions. Any other questions that I missed? I think I got it. I'm so excited we got to peel ginger. I think we got it all. So it's your chance to ask me anything else you might have. Anything? Bueller? Yay, I'm glad. Okay, we'll talk more about the stretching tips throughout the video, the class video next week. I talked to Lindsay about that, my co-founder of this, a lot today, that there are so many great ways to stretch ingredients without feeling like you're eating the same thing twice. So I'll probably talk about the other salad that I invented this week by using the curry nut mix and all of the ingredients from the other Thai salad leftovers I had. And it was so good. It was that new dressing I figured out. So I can't wait to share that with you as well. Anything else? Oh, yay. I'm so glad, Ruth. Their spices are amazing. They're all organic. They're such wonderful producers. They're just amazing women. And they started that company only because they believe in it so deeply. And they both have other jobs in the world. They just really wanted to bring that to life. So I'm so glad you love their products. You know what's really good that blew me away? Their chai tea, because the fresh spices that they use they use mint in it as well. It's unlike any chai I've ever had, even in like great tea places. It blew me away. I love that. I can't wait to show you guys all of these other things. Is anybody joining me in House of Haas this weekend? Are all of you in House of Haas? If you're not and you want to join us, I'm going to put the secret code in to save $10 or $5 a month when you go to sign up. Haas sauce. So 2 S's in there, okay? I would absolutely love for you to join us if you're not a member there. It's $19.99 a month with that secret code, and it is the best time. It's the best money. I'm actually a member. I signed up. I pay myself. I charge myself $19.99 a month just because I want to make sure I can see the experience that you're seeing. And I have to say, if I were actually, well, I am a paying customer, but if I didn't know me and I joined this, I would be like, okay, that is the most fun. And also, Mimi, you guys get access once we do the classes live. You can always go back and access the classes. So even if you can't join us live, you can go back and watch them at your own pace. Okay, so it's really, really fun. And this week we're doing, on Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific, we're doing sheet pan dinners. And I might throw in a third recipe for you all. We're probably only going to make 2 of them, but I'm probably going to do a fish one as well. We've got a chicken and a sausage recipe. And they're both great recipes where you can substitute vegetarian options if you want. Tons of flavor, tons of spices. And thank you, Loretta. That is so nice of you to say. I hope you guys will sign up for our first guest chef class too. Like I said, it's going to launch next Tuesday, and you all will have access to it first. So my House of Haas and Meal Planning Method members get the email first, along with the person, my friend who's co-hosting with me. Her mailing list gets it at the same time, and her mailing list is humongous. So we're going to have some friends joining us. I have a feeling. She's like, no one's going to sign up, but you guys, it's such a deal. You get an extra, it is so inexpensive, and you get an extra discount for being a member of one of these classes already, but it is fabulous. I can't wait for you to join us. And that's it. So everybody have a lovely evening. I can't wait to do this with you again next week. And please let me know if you have any questions this week. And if you're on Instagram, please post pictures of what you're doing. Tag me, show me your meal plan filled out, show me your food, anything you want to do, okay? And I'll see most of you on Saturday as well, okay? Thanks for hanging with me as always. Somebody just signed up. I just got a confirmation. You've got a new student. I bet I know who that is. So nice. Okay, guys, thanks, Mimi. Take good care, everybody. I'll see you Saturday. Okay, ciao.